annual Brookwood Veterans Day program. My name is Sophie Tenor, and I am a member of the Student Council. Today, it is our privilege to say thank you to all of America's veterans, to let them know that we appreciate them for their service and honor them for their sacrifices. The price of freedom is high. Today, we will honor that freedom by celebrating America's veterans for keeping this nation the land of the free and the home of the brave. At this time, if I could ask everyone who is able to rise, please join me in doing so for the presentation of colors by the Ontario American Legion, and to please remain standing as members of the Brookwood Choir and Band perform the national anthem. Will now recite the Pledge of Allegiance. We ask that no one recites with them, and to please stand if you are able.
On March 29, 2023, the nation recognized the 50th anniversary of the date the last combat troops left South Vietnam. Because it is the 50th anniversary of Vietnam, the Student Council decided to use this as a theme for this year's program. We honor Vietnam veterans and their families for their service and remember the men and women who put the lives of others ahead of their own to serve during one of America's longest foreign wars. Now, Tim DeWitt will explain how the draft was used during the Vietnam War.
Would your draft number have been called? On December 1st, 1969, the United States held its first draft lottery, which gave young men a random number corresponding to their birthdays. Men with lower numbers were called first and told to report to induction centers where they could be ordered into active duty and possibly sent to the Vietnam War.
Thank you, Tim. Our next presentation is about a 1967 Brookwood graduate, Michael Everett Deasy. Mike Deasy could never have imagined that he would be drafted into a war in the jungles of Vietnam as he walked across the stage in the classic gym receiving his diploma at Brookwood High School. But Mike was drafted in 1969, and his sister, Linda Berry, was gracious enough to have student council member Braden Tiemann interview her.
Hello, my name is Braden Tiemann. I'm part of the Brookwood Student Council. Today, I'm conducting an interview with Linda Berry. Please introduce yourself and explain your connection with Vietnam veteran Mike Giese.
Hi, I'm Linda Berry, and I am one of Mike's sisters.
What branch of the military was Mike in?
Mike was in the Army. He was drafted in the fall of '69 and was trained in Fort Polk, Louisiana, and Fort Riley, Kansas. And he was shipped over to Germany in October through November of 1970, and then came back to the United States. He was sent over to Vietnam January of '71, and he was killed in April of '71.
Do you have any more friends or family that served in Vietnam?
I had cousins, and they have struggled since they've been back. He was over there at the time he was killed. There was two of his good friends over there, and Mom and Dad were given the option of choosing one to accompany the body back, and they declined because they were afraid that one or the other would be killed, and they didn't want to be responsible for that.
Where did Mike receive his training?
Fort Polk, Louisiana, and Fort Riley. He was an excellent marksman because of all the squirrel hunting he did here in Wisconsin.
Do you know anything about Vietnam as a country itself?
No, I don't.
Do you have any opinions about the U.S. involvement with Vietnam at the time of the war?
At the time, I was pretty naive about what was going on, and it was just something that happened.
How did Mike communicate with his family while he was over there?
While he was here in the United States, he was able to call us. And the last phone call my mother got, he was on his way to Vietnam, and he called from Alaska in January. And after that, that was the last time any of us ever spoke to him. Other than that, he was allowed to send letters, and at that time, if you didn't send them by airmail, they got put on a slow boat, and it took weeks to do that. But if you had an airmail stamp, he'd have gotten it within a few days.
So how exactly did Mike receive his Purple Heart?
It took 22 years after his death to receive the Purple Heart due to the wording on his death certificate. It said that he was accidentally killed, and it took 22 years and a lot of legwork and paperwork from his buddies here in the U.S. to get it all straightened out. So Mom and Dad actually received the Purple Heart physically.
What is your favorite memory with Mike?
Probably his good-natured self. He was always outgoing, always willing to help people. He was a hoot to hang around. He always had a lot of friends, and I think my favorite memory of him was he bought and I don't remember what year the Mustang was, but he had 6 friends that he shoved in that car and would go for a ride. So that's probably one of my favorite memories, is the 6 guys getting into this little Mustang.
So how did you find out about Mike's death?
I was in home ec class here at Brookwood and got called to the office. And when I got to the office, my sister Bev was there, and Mr. Perkins took us home. And he didn't say anything. And when we got home, we walked into the house, and there was my mom and dad were crying, and a car had pulled out just when Mr. Perkins pulled in, and everybody, all that my mom and dad could say was Mike was dead. And a couple of my uncles went to La Crosse, because that's where my brother Bill was, and brought him home. And Mom was home by herself when the officers showed up. There was 2 officers showed up, and they asked her where they could find my dad. And at that time, Mom actually knew where he was. He was up on the ridge by a farmer, so she called him, and he came right home. And the other officer contacted everybody that Mom and Dad felt should know. So, there was a young officer came down a couple days later and helped with the paperwork. And all I can remember about him is he had the same color of eyes and was left-handed like my brother Mike. So that's how we found out.
I'm terribly sorry for the loss for you and your family.
Thank you.
Do you guys carry on any traditions that honor Mike?
We each honor him in our own way. We have told our children about Mike, so they all grew up knowing Mike, not physically, but emotionally. And they have told their children. So that's our way of tradition, I guess.
Has he been honored on any television or newspapers?
La Crosse ran Faces of the Past a few years ago, and that's where he was listed. So.
Your family donated the board for the school track records, which is located in the Falcon Mall. The Falcon Mall is the entry point for the elementary school. What prompted your family to do this?
Mike was very athletic, and my brother Dan's daughter was in track or cross country, track I think it was, and that's probably why the donation was done.
In closing, is there anything else you would like to say about your brother?
He's missed. And I would like to know how he would have turned out if he had reached my age. Because when I think of him, he's always going to be 19 or 20. And that's the way I picture him. So when I see his classmates, I wonder how much he would have changed.
Well, we honor him in his service for this country. We're sorry for your loss. Thank you very much for this interview.
You're welcome.
Council Member Braden Tiemann for the amazing interview, and a big thank you to Linda Berry. Would everyone please give them a round of applause? At this time, the elementary students in grades 1 through 3 will be singing You're a Grand Old Flag, and the students in grades 4 through 6 will be singing God Bless America.
As you heard from the interview, it took a long time for Mike Giese to receive his Purple Heart. This was written by Diane Hansen in the Monroe County Democrat. A Norwalk couple received a Purple Heart medal over 20 years after their 21-year-old son, Michael Giese, was killed by a booby-trap mine in Vietnam. Everett and Jane Giese accepted the medal on behalf of their dead son, Saturday in a special ceremony at the VFW Club in La Crosse. The 22-year delay in the awarding of the medal was due to military red tape and the Army's initial response, which denied the medal on the basis that Giese was killed in non-hostile action. The Purple Heart, the nation's oldest military medal, is given to members of the armed forces wounded or killed in action against the enemy. A high school friend of Giese, Ride Neger, of home A Holman thought the Army was wrong with the help of lacrosse county veteran service officer Floyd Shanky. He fought the red tape and ultimately won the battle with the military truancy. Proof of hostile action was found in a letter dated April 24, 1971, written by Norman E. Thomas, Giesi's infantry captain, who describes the young soldier's death. Thomas wrote, Mike was participating in operations approximately 3 miles south of the DMZ on Razorback called the Rock Pile in Quan Tri Province, Republic of Vietnam, when he was mortally wounded by fragments from a Claymore anti-personnel mine in his right side and hip. On the morning of April 4th, shortly after 7 a.m., Mike informed the rest of his squad he was going to check on his Claymore to see if it had been tampered with. On his way, he hit a tripwire employed across the trail by North Vietnamese, which detonated his own mine. Giesi, who worked on his parents' farm after his graduation from Brookwood High School in 1967, was drafted in 1969. After he left, the Gieses were unable to handle the farm themselves and sold the milk cows. Mike's dream, according to his parents, was to be a farmer. However, an exploding mine in a faraway country ended that dream. Giesi is buried in the St. Mary's Ridge Cemetery near his childhood home. The elder Gieses had a wound opened with the controversy over the Purple Heart. However, as their son chose to fight for his country, they chose to fight for this last honor for their son.
Now I will read what appeared in the newspaper when Michael Giesi was killed in action. Michael Giesi, right slated for Norwalk GI, killed in war. Norwalk, Wisconsin services for PFC Michael E. Giesi, 21, killed April 4th in Vietnam, will be at 10:30 a.m. Thursday in St. Mary's Catholic Church, St. Mary's Ridge. Reverend Bernard Harry will officiate, and burial will be in the church cemetery. Friends were to call after 7:30 p.m. Wednesday at the Smith Nelson Funeral Home in Wilton. He was killed when an explosive device he was retrieving accidentally detonated. He entered the service at 1969 at Fort McCoy Campbell, Kentucky. He had further training at Fort Polk, Louisiana, and he took part in maneuvers in Germany October 5th to November 5th, 1970. He went to Vietnam January 22nd, 1971, and was stationed near Quai Shan. He was a member of the motor company of the 501st Infantry, 101st Airborne Division. He was a 1967 graduate of Brookwood High School. He is survived by his parents, Mr. and Mrs. Everett Giesi, 2 brothers, William and Daniel, and 3 sisters, Linda, Beverly, Karen, all at home, and his parental grandmother, Mrs. Eleanor Giesi of Ontario.
Thank you, Taylor. At this time, the Brookwood Band, under the direction of Wade Behrens, will be performing Armed Forces Salute, arranged by Douglas Wagner. If you are able, please stand when you hear your branches tuned, so that you can be recognized. Army.
Navy. Coast Guard. Air Force. Thank you to the band for that amazing performance. At this time, members of the Brookwood Student Council will be presenting some quotes that individuals took the time to write on a website which appears online at the Wall of Faces. Please hold your applause until each of the quotes is finished.
My cousin's lovely memory. Mike is my first cousin. I remember him from times visiting on the farm. He was older than me and so handsome in my eyes. One time during a visit when we were playing, I fell running across their driveway. The driveway was gravel and I got stones in my knees. Mike picked me up and carried me to the house. He was my hero. That memory will always make me smile. I remember the day I heard that he wouldn't be coming home. I was leaving school and the bus driver told me. I didn't believe him, but when I got home, Mom was already there. She was sitting at the kitchen table crying. I knew then it was true. Think of you often, Cousin Mike. Love you.
The uncle I never knew, Mike. Linda has told me stories of you and my father when you were kids. I had the great fortune to work with Dick Beyer when I was in high school, and he spoke very highly of you. My father wore your class ring until the day he died. I now have the ring and will make sure that it gets passed through the generations. You will never be forgotten.
My dear friend, I had a huge crush on Mike growing up in Wilton, Wisconsin. In fact, Mike took me out on my 16th birthday. My dad told me I had to be home by 11 p.m. It was the end of daylight savings time, and you had turned your clocks back that night. At 11, Mike and I turned the clocks back to 10 and had an extra wonderful hour together. I will never forget it. I will never forget you, Mike. Thank you for fighting for our country. Thank you for giving your life for me.
Uncle Mike, We may never have met, but my mother keeps you alive every day by sharing her favorite stories of her big brothers, you as well as Bill. I know by the tears that fill her eyes how much you meant and continue to mean to our family. I don't think a day goes by that you are not thought of and remembered. Even though you never got to hear me call you Uncle Mike, I hold a place in my heart for you. I am now a mother of two and hope to keep your memory alive through my children, sharing with them the stories my mother has shared with me.
Thank you. A thank you note. You do not know me, but I went to school with your sister Karen on St. Mary's Ridge. I was 9 years old and in second grade, and we had just finished our Easter party when 2 military police came into our classroom to talk to our teacher, who was Mrs. Margaret Laufenberg, your aunt. I have never forgotten that day and the sadness we saw in her face when she came back into the room and told us that her nephew had died in Vietnam. That memory has stayed with me ever since. I visited the Vietnam Wall and found your name on the wall and have been to your gravesite on St. Mary's Ridge. It's hard to explain how the memories of that day have stayed with me all these years. You have impacted my life more than you will ever know. I wish you could have made it back home, and I wish I could have known you. Thank you for your service to our country.
Full of life. I remember Mike as a young person filled with life and happiness when my family visited his parents' farm. I was a freshman in college coming home for Easter break when my mother was informed of his death. I took it very hard. We named our firstborn son Brian Michael so that Mike's life would live on.
Willow Posh will now explain the history of the Vietnam Veterans Memorial in Washington, D.C.
History of the Wall. In 1979, the Vietnam Veterans Memorial Fund was established. Jan Scruggs, a wounded veteran himself, was the voice behind its creation. After $8.4 million was raised through private donations, Congress commissioned for the memorial to be built at a site near the Lincoln Memorial. A nationwide contest was held to select the memorial's design. Over 1,400 people submitted proposals, but one was unanimously selected. The winning design was done by a young woman named Maya Lin, a 21-year-old student at Yale University. Lin originally created the design as a final project for a class on funeral design architecture and received a B- on the work. Ground broke on the memorial in March of 1982, and it was dedicated in November of that same year, becoming the first national veterans memorial in the U.S. The postmodern structure differed greatly from the classic designs of the Lincoln and Jefferson memorials. The memorial differed from the other classical structures in the Capitol in many ways. The black granite was chosen due to its reflective nature. As you walk down to the memorial, you'll see yourself amongst the names and feel a connection to those lost. The chevron shape of the memorial lines up in a way that one arm points to the Washington Monument and the other to the Lincoln Memorial, with names rising up around you as you walk through. Today, the wall stands as a highly respected icon of American sacrifice that is visited by millions each year. If you have the opportunity to visit the wall, please take a minute to panel W4, line 105.
The Brookwood Band will now play Reflections from the Wall. This commemoration of the 50th anniversary of the end of the Vietnam War was inspired by a visit to the Vietnam War Memorial and the power of this spectacular monument. Opening with a simple depiction of a cloud-covered morning, it broadens into a dramatic and powerful presentation as the sun triumphantly breaks through the clouds. Emotion, reflection, and a sincere thanks to those who served are the driving musical elements of this powerful piece.
Brookwood Band on that piece from the Vietnam War era. Now Miranda Arndt will read a poem.
Black Granite Wall by Spencer D. Nave Jr. Chiseled in granite are the names of them all. The sons and the daughters are there on the wall. 58,183. For the cause of freedom, they died honestly. Now freedom's a thing worth more than life's breath. To live free is every man's quest. When a friend needs your help, you don't turn your back. You pick up your rifle and head off down the track. Chiseled in granite are the names of them all. The sons and the daughters are there on the wall. 58,183. For the cause of freedom, they died honestly. During the days of the Vietnam War, off to the jungles the young men went. Some of them gladly, while others were forced. For the cause of freedom, the call came to march. Chiseled in granite are the names of them all. The sons and the daughters are there on the wall. 58,183. For the cause of freedom, they died honestly. Now there at the wall, black granite it stands, are the names of the ones who didn't come back. Be reverent, respectful when you walk by. For the cause of freedom, these young people died. Chiseled in granite are the names of them all. The sons and the daughters are there on the wall. 58,183. For the cause of freedom, they died honestly.
I would like to take some time to introduce our veterans. When the microphone is passed to you, please stand if you are able and state your name, branch, and the time frame in which you served. Everyone, please hold your applause until all the veterans have been introduced.
Robert Rook, 63 to 66, Army. David Nevin, Army, 63 to 66. Elton Burnett, Army, 55. Bill Seymour, Army, 1968, 66 through 68. Colin Winchell, Air Force, 1985 to 1987. David Bergerman, 1972 to 1977, U.S. Navy. Jim Reinish, 1967 to 1970. I spent 30 months in Germany. Williams, Army, 1971 to 1973. Gordon Peterson, Army National Guard, 1996 to 2017. Jason DeWitt, United States Marine Corps, 1987 to 1995.
Jerry Von Hayden, Army, 1963 through 1968, Army Reserve.
Dwayne Shaker, Master, Norwalk-Ontario-Wilton, 1971, 1991. Skip Dares, U.S. Army. I served in Vietnam from 14 months, 1968 to 1969.
Wally Beck, I served in the United States Navy, 1970. 1964 to 1970.
Bill Rowe, Army, 1958 to 60, to the Wisconsin Conference from 1960 to 62. Jim Harding, U.S. Army, 72 to 75, Wisconsin Army National Guard.
David Decken, Wisconsin Army National Guard, 1977 to 2009.
Murray Beaver, U.S. Army, 1965, 67, 13 months in Vietnam.
Bill Tyler, U.S. Navy, Vietnam, 1967, 1969.
Sarah Decken, Wisconsin Army National Guard, from 1989 to 2014, and currently serving with the Army Reserves.
Darrell Garvey, Army, 1964 to 1966.
Tony Guerra, U.S. Coast Guard, 75 to 97.
Vince Nachi, Army, 1998 President of the 88th Division.
Steve Randall, 1975 1979, United States Navy.
Dan Dutton, U.S. Air Force, and then Wisconsin Army National Guard, 1977 to 2003.
Mark Stevenson, U.S. Navy, 1966 to 1969.
Ken Downing, U.S. Navy, 1969 to 1976. Ted Goldnick, Justin Kennedy, Reserve Agent, active duty 92, January 2022.
Mark Wagner, Army, 94 to present.
Jack Melby, Army, 8 months in Vietnam, 69 to 70.
Eugene Oyam served in the Army from 1964 to 1966.
David Brando, and I have my brother here, Richard. He was in the Army and the Air Force. I don't remember the dates, but he's older than I am. I was in Vietnam 1967 to 1968. I went through Tet Offensive. I'm an Agent Orange survivor, and we're recipient of 2 Bronze Stars. Thank you.
My name is Bruce Seward, 1980 to 1991, U.S. Army. In September of 91, U.S. Air Force to 2007.
Jordan Jones, Wisconsin Army National Guard, been in since 2015 to present, 1 deployment to Africa. Don Zimmerman for the Korean conflict from 51 to 53.
Smith, Wisconsin Air Force National Guard from 2017 to present.
Matt Dutton, United States Air Force, 2010 to present.
Travis Skronsky, Air Force, 2001 to present.
Vanessa Wills, Air National Guard, currently serving.
Crystal Gilbertson, United States Navy, 2009 to 2011.
Kyle Kunitz, Wisconsin Army National Guard, 2008 present.
Any more veterans in the chairs? Okay, I'll bring it to the bleachers then.
Gerber, 1984 to 2010, U.S. Air Force.
Paul Stendal, U.S. Air Force, active duty, 1974 to 76, 76 to 1985, U.S. Air Force Reserve, General Bill, Mitchell Field, Milwaukee.
Terry Rogala, U.S. Navy, Naval Reserves, and Army Reserves, 1987 to 2001.
Scott Bloom, U.S. Army, 1981 to 2015.
Bill Mackel, excuse me, Bill Mackel, Navy, 94 to 97.
Clifford Freiberg, Navy, 1966 to 70.
Jerry Janney, Army, 1969 to 1971.
Jeff Shell, United States Army, 1985 to 1992.
A special thank you to all of our veterans for their years of service. Your hard work and dedication is much appreciated. The Brookwood Choir, under the direction of Hunter Evenson, will now play Song for the Unsung Hero.
Sing for unsung heroes. choir for that wonderful performance. And thank you, veterans. With that, our 2023 Veterans Day program has come to an end. On behalf of myself and the entire Brookwood community, I would like to once again thank all of the veterans for their service to our country. We appreciate all of the hard work and effort that you have put into keeping us safe. I would also like to thank the band and choir for their outstanding performances today, as well as the janitorial staff for assisting us and setting up for the program. We really appreciate your help. As you exit the gym, notice the track and field records donated by the Geezy family. In a short while, as you begin to walk to lunch, please notice the stars hanging on the walls within the annex. These stars are our way of showing recognition to our veterans for their courage and bravery. Please feel free to take your star or the star of a loved one off of the wall and home with you. At this time, I ask for all whom are able to please rise as Mason Rex and Mr. Behrens perform taps, and to please remain standing for the retiring of the colors by the Ontario American Legion. That all veterans are invited to the cafeteria at this time for Thanksgiving meal. Thank you for coming.